my side, a very warm welcome. Good morning to everyone who's joining us virtually, but also to our in-person audience. We have a great pleasure to welcome a delegation from Nigeria in our Berlin office at Öko-Institut. It is a pleasure to see so many familiar faces that we've been working together with and had in sessions in Nigeria on the ground. Personally, it's also a special moment to welcome so many familiar faces in my home country and able to share our research results, to later even discuss some research results. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our session. We're gonna have input of 20 minutes split up between myself, Andreas, and Israel and Oliver Toby. To start with, I would like to review the several objectives that we started the ECoN project with. Overall, we want to advance a financing model that is called waste compensation. It enables the collection of electronic waste. And to do so, and to prove that, we aimed at collecting 20 tons of waste batteries and flat panel screens. And on the screen, you already see that my pointer doesn't work, but we actually overachieved our project target to around 30 tons of electronic waste. With the collection of electronic waste, there also comes the responsible treatment / processing of waste fractions. So we also developed full and responsible processing solutions. And our aim was to really develop these on the ground. So we wanted to, or we aimed at, and we did develop capacity in the waste sector and collection sector in Nigeria, as well as value creation, which means keeping fractions, keeping valuable resources in the country. So waste compensation is the way on the commercial side to make IT purchase decisions sustainable and green. What we use waste compensation for, and it's a model that Closing the Loop is working with, is that we channel a certain funding for compensation of new IT devices to fund and make the collection of electronic waste possible. So there's a one-for-one model, one new device, one waste device is funded and collected, and we take care of the responsible recycling of it. Closing the Loop has been doing this for mobile phones, laptops, batteries, tablets successfully for many years already. And now the aim was to expand this and to test if it works for other e-waste fractions, such as flat panel screens and batteries, which are actually negative fractions, so there's no return or economic value in the recycling of these electronic devices as such. Everyone is still awake after my explanation. It apparently doesn't even need the animation. So I'm gonna skip the slides.
Yeah. Can I skip the slide?
Remove that.
Yeah, Israel is doing that for me now.
Yeah. Next.
Okay, very brief looking at our project setup. So it is closing the loop with Öko-Institut in the steering, overall program coordination. We already introduced Öko-Institut closing the loop as the implementer of waste compensation. We work together with an amazing local project team in Nigeria on the ground. We have SRADev Nigeria, who's present today. Dr. Leslie and Sarah is with us. They're doing policy work, connected us to all the relevant policy stakeholders, governance level. We work together with Hinckley Recycling. With us in person today is Israel, who is the operational manager and really doing the main work in terms of recycling for us. They're a well-established recycler already in Nigeria. And on the collection side, we work together with Verde Impacto. Oliver Toby is also with us virtually today. He is the main electronic waste collector connected to all important waste associations on the ground. But why we're here today is because we want to discuss and present to you the main outcomes of 1.5 years of ECoN project. Crucial outcomes that we found out is that, or that we set up, is that we were able to build a direct link between the collection side and a recycling sector in Nigeria. If there's no collection, there can't be recycling. What do we recycle if there's no collection? We proved this by having collected above 20 tons of flat panel screens, above 10 tons of lithium-ion batteries, and yeah, we have posted nice pictures of our past work, actually, where you see that we engaged with several waste collectors on the ground. We met them, we trained them in person to health and safety standards, and equipped everyone with personal protection equipment as well. Also, several people in this room were at our training moments the past years, which is nice to see. Another great achievement, and yeah, something we're really proud of to present to you, is that we found out that recycling, full and responsible recycling, is possible in Nigeria of electronic waste. And we can demonstrate this on the case of screen recycling, flat panel screen recycling. What we did is we dismantled the flat panel screens manually, and we got 17 different fractions, so components out of these flat panel screens. You can see a good amount of plastic on the right side of this picture, several metals, printed circuit boards, some hazardous fractions such as mercury tubes. In total, we had 17 different fractions, out of which we keep 15 fractions in the country, reuse them, remanufacture, co-process them. And we even found a reuse case for one fraction, which is a plexiglass, actually plastic. So this is a great message we can share, that responsible recycling is possible in Nigeria. With this, I want to hand over to Andreas, who's going to share further important outcomes with you.
Okay, thanks a lot. The next one is on lithium-ion batteries, probably important for the delegation who is here to discuss about or to research about batteries. Lithium-ion batteries, if you want to handle them properly in Nigeria, Nigeria still relies on exports. And this is quite costly. So this is not the best news, I would say. It's important because they, of course, contain hazardous substances. You all know this. You have a fire hazard, in particular with those batteries. And the problem is that you go for exports, you have to pack them in sand because of the fire risk. So a layer of sand, a layer of batteries, a layer of sand. In the end of the day, if you have a container with 20 tons of load, you export in 50 tons of sand.
Okay.
So you export of sand just to get rid of batteries. Yeah. This is, of course, expensive and not what we all want. You also have to go through the procedures of the Basel Convention. And this is a new problem, the shipping agencies are more and more aware of the fire risks, and they don't want the batteries on their ships. They don't want the ships to burn down. It happened 1 year ago.
Yeah.
So this is a bit tricky. It's possible, but it's expensive, and it's a lot of administrative work. It's a situation which is not yet perfect. Is local lithium-ion battery recycling in Nigeria possible? And there we have done a paper, and the paper is published on the Prevent website. And the good news is, yes, it is. There are basically various ways. We looked at how are lithium-ion batteries recycled across the world at the moment. And basically we can screen out, and I don't want to explain everything, it's too short, this 1 hour. What we can say is, from all the processes, we would at the moment for Nigeria cross out 2, because there are no prototypes you can buy. There is not enough experience to go that way yet. The other one, it's mechanical processing, shredding of the batteries, sorting the residues, and exporting the black mass. And the second one is a smelter, a high temperature process converting the batteries to an alloy. This would be feasible. Both of them. It has some consequences. I can't discuss all of them. The first consequence is that the mechanical processing cannot deal with all batteries. So you can do laptop batteries and notebook batteries, but probably not the solar batteries. The output is still hazardous. The investment cost is not so high. It starts with 100,000 US dollars, probably more because you want really good equipment. And the latter one, the pyrometallurgical, the furnace, a lot of you run furnaces, you know how a furnace looks like. The investment cost is, it doesn't display properly here, between 2 and 3 million, 3 million US dollar probably. The advantage is that it turns hazardous waste into non-hazardous waste, a non-hazardous commodity. These are options which I think are realistic. 3 million for a country such as Nigeria should not be too much. But it brings us to the next finding. And again, don't dive too deep into this. This is economic calculations we have done. What you see on the top are different chemistries for lithium-ion batteries. And we looked at the cost and return points. And the main message is all types of lithium-ion batteries, proper recycling has net costs. And this is probably the reason why nobody invests in Nigeria. With lead acid, it's different. You invest in a machinery and a facility, you buy the batteries, and you win in the end. Here it's different. If you buy a machine for $3,000, you get the batteries and you recycle them, and you have a net loss. So you have to charge the supplier. Do you have enough suppliers in Nigeria willing to pay you money for doing it properly? It's a recycling segment where the supplier has to pay. This is important for lithium-ion batteries. The same is the case for screen. What Hannah explained us, it's possible technically, yes. But if you do this, you end up with net costs. And this is a policy implication. You need to build systems. We all need to build systems where we find people, probably the producers, those who earn money with the products, to finance sound recycling. It's done already. You build up the PROs and the EPR system. And this is a key lesson learned for lithium-ion batteries, but also for screens. In the end of the day, someone has to pay the costs for sound recycling. This is the figures I want to show you. They're all negative, they're all with minuses. They might drop if you go into economy of scale. It's very high at the moment. They can be reduced, but unfortunately, they can't be really positive. It's not a gold mine where you just dig in and you make money. The outcome number 6, e-waste compensation is useful as a stepping stone to larger solution. I think our message is, I'm convinced that this is a contributing solution. But when we look at the volumes, a bit more than 30 tons in 1.5 years, I'm sure you can boost this. We can go to, or they can go to probably 100 tons and more. But if you look at Nigeria, you have 461,000 tons per year if you look at the global e-waste monitor. I'm not sure if this is correct, but the message is clear. E-waste compensation will not solve the e-waste dilemma of a country such as Nigeria. You're one of the biggest economies in Africa, so e-waste compensation alone can't fix it. So I think the big challenge is use the model, learn from it, and expand it to a national system. I know that you're working on this, but this is just a message. E-waste compensation cannot and should not replace your own national efforts. Outcome number 7, e-waste compensation needs rules. At the moment, we have Closing the Loop as one player. I think they're doing quite good. But when this grows, there will be more players on the market. And people will run around with the big tech companies, do e-waste compensation and pay me for this. There is, of course, the temptation of doing things that don't benefit the countries. So we think, and I think Reinhard highlighted it very well yesterday, there is something like a standard needed. What is e-waste compensation? And from what point on, it's not e-waste compensation, it's just fraud. And we worked out a paper, which I think is not yet published, but it's a discussion paper, and we suggest 11 points, which must be fulfilled. Some of them, it's additionality. I don't want to go too deep. We only have 1 hour. So that the e-waste compensation, the e-waste covered should not be, already financed by another scheme. Or, for example, local value addition, that as many processes as possible should be conducted locally. So not just exporting tons and tons of e-waste, but as a means to grow a local recycling industry. So this is one follow-up point where we think more action is needed and where we will suggest 11 principles. This is not carved in stone, and this is probably also a point for the discussion later on. What should e-waste compensation look like so it benefits countries such as Nigeria? And this is the last point in our presentation, and it also touches upon what Alexander presented yesterday. Basel Convention notification procedures are vital because every country in the world in e-waste management needs to export something. Also, Germany exports certain fractions of e-waste management to neighboring countries. So we have corporations and we have the Basel Convention. And the Basel Convention is very useful, but it can be blocking sound initiatives if the processes for export are too slow. So this is a message to the regulators. We need to ensure if you want sound recycling, the process must run smoothly. And there is this very nice publication by Prevent, not by this project, but what we think was a very useful initiative. So this is a clear message. The BASEL notification is important, but to support sound recycling, it must go smoothly. These were our interventions, and we would now hand over to the people on the ground who worked ECoN on the ground. It is Israel, Oluwatobi online, also Leslie, and then over to you. And to hear what you think of this project, what your experience were with the project, and then we move over to the open debate. Israel, the floor is yours.
This is Oluwatobi.
Oluwatobi, sorry. Oluwatobi is online. He could not make it to Germany. So Oluwatobi, please speak up.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. We hear you.
Yeah, my name is Oluwatobi. So I'm here to talk about the collection impact in Nigeria. As the sole collector in Nigeria, my job has been to work with the agents, the informal agents here in Nigeria. So presently, we've been able to collect about 11 tons of batteries from the informal sector, and screens about 21.7 tons of screens. We've been able to recover that volume from the informal sector. This has been a large volume that we've been able to achieve in a short while, and we're very proud of this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the direct impact for this project, what we've been able to achieve is we've been able to work with 30 agents, 30 direct agents who we know. So these agents have been well documented. They have a government ID card. They have a bank account. They have all necessary information that we use in identifying these agents. And while these agents also work with a minimum about 10 to 20 agents under them. So this model works here in Nigeria, where we have the main agents and the sub agents who also deals with these materials. So for this project, we were able to at least directly impact about over 150 lives through this impact. These guys on a typical day will just collect, but what we've been able to help them with is we've been able to train them. We've been able to help them to understand more about collection and handling of e-waste. So with the help of Öko-Institut, with the help of CTL Closing the Loop, we've been able to get training materials that we use in training these guys on handling, especially the hazards. So we tell them how hazardous these materials are, how to handle it, and in turn, we've been able to have a very, very good relationship with these guys over time. So that has been the summary of the collection and the impact of this project here in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Oluwatobi. I would then hand over to, you have slides or? Israel.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Israel Olagunju from Hinckley. I would just like to say that this project has really been beneficial to us at Hinckley. At the inception of the project, we had a plan. I mean, CTL came with a plan. They came to us and they said, okay, this is what we want to do. This is how we'll go about it. And then along the line, we got to discover for ourselves the right way to go about it. There were a lot of modifications. You know, you can always plan something, and then when you're in the field, you get to face different challenges, and then you see that, okay, what you have on paper may not be practical, you know, in the field. And this was a very wonderful learning experience for us and for myself personally, because we got to understand the different fractions. We got to understand how to dismantle different models of monitors and TV screens. We are successful now in identifying and depolluting all types of monitor screens and TV screens. Fraction sorting has now become very easy for us. If you hand any monitor to us at this point in time, we will dismantle and sort out all the fractions very easily. Also, very recently, we found a solution for the acrylic glass, which at the beginning of the project, it was just something I would just collect and aggregate in the store and, you know, looking for solutions for it. But At the moment now, we have a solution within Hinckley. We have a partnership with Loop, and I'm sure Andreas, you projected something in your slides, I think, or it was Hannah, and that is a plus for us. Although this has been a very wonderful project, but of course there are still some challenges. We still have a little bit of difficulty identifying some plastics, because with every model that comes in, the constitution is a little bit different. So you may have Philips, you may have HP, Samsung, Toshiba, and then some of them will just have some different fractions in them. And when I'm talking of the polyimide plastic, so that is quite the challenge even up till today, and we are trying our best to surmount that challenge. Then also the PCBs still have to go, they still have to be exported. So that is still a problem. We wish to be able to treat everything within Nigeria, but at the moment we still have to export the PCBs. Then on the battery side, the bulk of storage, like Andreas mentioned, it is a lot. I mean, when you have 20 tons of batteries, you still have like 50 tons of sand. So the bulk of storage is still a problem that we hope in the near future we will be able to overcome. Okay, sorry. So downstream options for the metals, we sell the metals to off-takers within Nigeria, the plastics as well. And for the acrylic glass, like I mentioned, and as seen on the screen, we use it for solar lanterns, which is actually championed by Loop, an Hinckley partner. And then the mercury bulbs are crushed within Nigeria, and the LCDs are being processed by Geocycle. So this has been a very wonderful project, and I would call it a success on our end. On personal level, I mean, this is a very wonderful program for me personally as an individual, because I have learned a lot. And I would like to thank everyone involved. I would like to thank the team in Öko-Institut and as well as CTL, and generally the Prevent Waste Alliance. Thank you very much for onboarding Hinckley in this project. Thank you.
I have to hand back these praises because our efforts would have been impossible without very good ground team, Oliver Toby organizing the collection, Israel being basically the person in charge of organizing everything on the factory floor. Also finding about that this very nice case, I have to stress this again, that now display glass is turned into a product, a solar lantern manufactured in Nigeria. I think this is a very nice case. Of course, it cannot, not all screen can be used for a lantern, but it's a very nice case. I would now hand over to the boss to tell us what does it mean in terms of policy for Nigeria.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Leslie Adodame. He's actually the boss. And that's the boss over there. Okay, so I'm just going to speak to, talking about the success story of this project. There are quite a lot of things that happen behind the scene, which is important to mention, but we can't speak about them here. We're going to talk, you'll see them in most of the reports that are already online. But it's very important that the ECoN project is a project that is a policy initiative project that needs to be mainstreamed into the national context. And if that is the case, then it means that we need to be able to understand that it has a lot of connection to all relevant actors and the existing policy framework. What we did was to ensure that we carried out a very well-grounded baseline study. And the baseline study of both components, both the lithium-ion batteries and the flat screen use was assessed on the ground. What was the current practice happening? Beyond that, we first of all identified all the key stakeholders. And I can confirm that the majority of you here, almost 80% of you, were part of the process all through. After identifying the key stakeholders, we done the baseline studies. We also conducted a very a questionnaire-based interview, speaking to all of you, because you needed to mainstream the project into whatever was in existence. We interviewed stakeholders from the Ministry of Environment, officials, to NESRA, to other players in the field, and the informal sector. We collected information from them, and that was very, very important. Beyond that, we also had a well-grounded stakeholder engagement component, because, I mean, by having policy outreaches, we wanted to see how to complement the EPR scheme, because we know that the NESRA has in place a full-fledged EPR, and this is an initiative that is supposed to complement whatever is already on ground. So we organized about 3 stakeholders workshops. They were all focused on lessons learned. We had the first one, 11th May 2021. Another one was 10th November 2021, and another 29th March 2022. As a matter of fact, the final stakeholders workshop, which is like a dissemination workshop, is going to happen on the 29th, precisely of this month. Beyond that, just like you mentioned, and they mentioned earlier, we also have a very well grounded informal sector training, where we brought almost about 40 informal sectors to train them on so many practices around e-waste collection and safe handling. I think I will just round up by saying, in conclusion, the project has been very useful, just like my colleague talked about. Another eye-opener, because again, even though we are aware that there is a Jeff-funded project on circular economy happening already by these guys sitting in front of me, that is NESRA. There were gaps we understand. The aspect of lithium-ion battery and flat screens were not well focused. So this is where this project concerns. And there are reports, 2 feasibility reports online, Prevent website already on that. Just to round up by saying the pilot and any extension of e-waste compensation should follow the principle of local sourcing, and just like Andreas mentioned, and local value creation. This is very key. This project ultimately fits into the EPR process. We are not saying it's going to replace the EPR process, but it should run side by side. But when you now have a full-fledged EPR, then obviously e-waste compensation will not be the answer. Thank you very much.
Leslie, you can keep standing, because now it's time to go into basically a discussion.
Yeah.